All right, here we go. Lesson 7, Early Language Development, Birth to Toddler. So lesson 6, we looked at brain development around language development. Now we're going to look at what happens in that early childhood time between birth and age 3. It's amazing what happens in language development in there. Okay, so just to get us going, a quick review of last lesson's topic. Quick review of biological. What do you think is happening in each of these MRIs? So looking at this MRI versus this MRI. Basically, this one is an MRI image of when the left is when somebody is reading a book. And this one is when they are searching on the internet for something. Interesting. I'm going to give you a chance to jump into this later, but basically there's lots and lots of discussion out there about what is the internet doing to our brains, right? So if you're interested in this topic, have a look at Nicholas Carr has got some really good stuff out there, and how the internet is actually physiologically changing our brains and how we think. So if that we're going to do a little bit with that later in this lesson, but if you're interested, have a bit of a go with that. Okay. What you're going to do in collaborate time is you are going to brain dump with a buddy. What do you remember from your Born to Talk reading or infant directed speech video without looking back at your notes? So from those two resources, be ready to just talk about what you learned from those particular resources. Okay, so we're going to jump right into language development in the first year of life. Basically, I want you to go to this video and watch from 1:15 to about 2 and just look at what is a newborn doing. So basically, they are devoted to making contact with the world through their senses. So be looking for that in the video. They're active, they're busy thinking, they're possibly trying to communicate, basically through crying. That's how they communicate that something's an issue. Their communication is not intentional at first. When they're hungry, they cry because their stomach is in pain, but they're not realizing that that's an intentional communication. And their desire to communicate will actually develop a little bit later. So start at 1:15, go to 2, just get an idea of what newborns are doing. Okay. In the first year of life, a child is basically, it's called contingent responding. So basically, there's interactions between the parent or the caregiver and the child. Usually the parents are pretty eager to communicate with their child, even though they obviously don't expect a response from their 2-month-old. Parents still actually interact and talk to the child as if the child will respond. Okay? This is important to create the infant's self-awareness and efficacy. They see themselves as somebody worthy of being talked to by this parent that they love. So the babies then learn to connect their motor actions, so smiling, flailing, moving, with interaction with the parent. So they learn that their reaction gets this positive reaction out of the parent. And there's an assumption for both parent and baby that certain responses, things like smiling or flailing, will get a certain response. So the parent might be excited in response to the child smiling. And this is important in learning how language works. This sort of asking a question, waiting for a response, the flow of the conversation. Okay, I want you to again watch this video. It's called Still Face, and basically I'm just going to read you what this experiment is so that you have the foundation for this particular video. The Still Face experiment demonstrates that very young infants already have several basic building blocks of social cognition in place. It suggests that they have some sense of relationship between facial expression and emotion, and that they have some primitive social understanding, and that they are able to regulate their own affect and attention to some extent. So basically, this is showing that the parent or the caregiver and the child have this communication ability going on. And what happens when the mom just still faces, doesn't give any expression to the child. So I want you to watch this. It's kind of sad, but it's really interesting to show how much communication, this interaction, this contingent responding is so important. And then just to show that it's not just moms, look at the still face dad, one from 110 to 3, and just kind of be ready to discuss what you think is happening in this experiment. Okay. This was in your reading, this whole concept of motherese, infant-directed speech, parentese, or baby talk. Basically, I do this to my dog all the time. I'm like, oh, how are you? Are you a good puppy? Most of us will talk to a child, especially under 3 years of age, with this kind of parentese, and you saw it in your video. It's this sort of goo goo gaga kind of talk. Basically, it's a really important part of language development. It's not just annoying, but it's actually really an important part. So the purpose is to capture and maintain the infant's attention, because basically it's very sing-songy. You are exaggerated. You're catching their attention and saying these weird sounds that are coming out of my mouth are actually really important. And so it catches the child's attention. It's simplified language. Usually you use really simple syntax. You use a lot of small vocabulary. It's a slower tempo of the speech. You elongate the vowels so that the child can actually hear these different sounds. Because remember, they're trying to figure out how is this speech thing different than the dog barking. Right. And so we will go, look at the dog. Do you like the dog? The dog is so cute. What a cute little dog. So the child is hearing dog 4 times in a very simplified speech. And it's this sense of conversation that the caregiver, the mother or the father will say, would you like some milk? Then there's a pause. Oh, actually, there's a rise at the end of the sentence. Would you like some milk? There's a pause. Or would you like a cookie? Right? And so they get the lilt of the language, and they get this idea that conversation is a give and take, that it's back and forth in there. So basically, what is IDS? It's basically a sound. Again, oops, clicked too many screens going on here. Basically, it's the sound. It's very sing-songy. It's the baby likes it better than just straight up low speech like this. This is not as exciting, but sing-songy is very nice. It's usually higher in pitch, which usually catches the baby's attention. And there's some cultural differences where they're finding they'll find that sentences, the end of sentences or questions, in English go up, and in other cultures they have like the end of sentences will go up, will stay in the middle, or go down. And so there's lots of these cultural things that they're taking into. Gestures, again, we do lots of fun things. Our eyes are up, and so it helps them to figure out what this stuff is that's coming out of our mouth, with actual connect it to reality. And again, that conversation, we introduce the concept of conversation. I thought the young man in the video did a pretty good job of capturing this concept of parentese. Just a little video, just a little one, goo goo gaga's my little boo boo, and the baby's like, great, daddy's a moron. Baby's first thoughts. A prime example of IDS, infant directed speech. Okay, again, just to give you an idea of this in reality is go from 0 to 30 seconds. That's all you need to do in this one, about a mother talking to a 3 to 5 month old, and then a 9-month-old. Listen to the father and this little baby, and listen to how the baby is reacting to the father's sounds that he's making. Okay. There's obviously always some research behind these concepts. So basically, research by Hart and Risley, sorry, in 1995, they basically found that the amount of parental talk that was directed to their children relates to the variation in the child's cognitive and language abilities. And this is kind of an interesting phenomenon. The amount of talk directed to a child from birth to age 3 predicts their academic success at age 9 to 10. So children who are advanced in language have parents who usually have talked significantly more to them than do children who are not advanced in language. Because you think about it, children of talkative parents have heard almost 45 million words spoken during their first 3 years, whereas children of taciturn or not that verbally verbose have only heard 13 million words. So 45 million words in 3 years versus 15 million words in 3 years. Just hearing that many more words absolutely affected their academic. They found that there's a correlation between their academic success at 9 and 10. So kind of crazy. So in Collaborate, we're going to have a little example. So if there's a couple of you that don't mind doing some reading online, I'll have you do a parent, very talkative parent and a child, and a very taciturn parent and a child. So just be ready for that. I'll give that to you during our Collaborate time. But super interesting that how much we actually talk to our kids is super, super important, so that they just hear the language and hear the vocab. Okay, when we look at how do infants actually learn the meaning of the words from all the sound, just like how do they actually pick out the individual words? Basically, it's called fast mapping. Basically, they hear the word, so they hear it in the auditory. That activates a memory about the sounds and syllables of the word stored previously. So that's phonology. And then the activation then leads to a word meaning. Then they actually start to link it to a word. So words that are used commonly at the home are the most easily fast mapped because the brain remembers both the phonological sound and the semantic meaning. So when you're constantly going, do you want some milk? And pointing to the bottle of milk. Do you like milk? Do you want a bottle? Oftentimes bottle, dog, those things that they see and hear and can point to a lot, they fast map those into their head so that they can connect. They can connect, again, those sounds that are coming out of your mouth. They're like, oh yeah, I've heard that before. I know that that's the dog. When mom points to that, she says this dog, and then off we go. So that's fast mapping in there. Okay, again, I want you to, this is using communication to get things done. So at 8 months of age, kids have already picked up the lilt of the language, the nuance of the language. They are starting to realize that at this point that these weird sounds that we're making actually will help them get what they want. So I want you again to, at 8 months of age, babies begin to respond. So they will respond to your words, like, do you want a cookie? Generally, an 8-month-old will go, yeah, they'll nod or say something, because then they get the cookie. And they can also initiate interactions with parents and others. So they'll come up and ask for something. It's not just this one-way street of the parent always talking to the child. So again, I want you to stop me and go and watch these talking twins. They're adorable. They're 10 months old, but listen to, their words don't make sense, but listen to the sound of their language and the lilt of the language and how they're responding and how they're giving and taking. The conversation is quite a normal conversation. So have a little bit of a go with that video. It's really quite amazing when you think of it from a language development point of view. Weren't they cute? Weren't the twins cute? Yep. Okay, So we're going to jump into beyond infancy now. So we're looking at their first word, usually is around their first birthday. So, and again, kids develop all at different stages. Some kids will be talking in terms and words that other adults can understand when they're 8 months old, and some will wait till they're 2. It really it's a huge range, but generally, first word is around the first birthday. However, we all like to think that our babies are brilliant, and we all like to say, oh yeah, they said mommy and daddy and truck and all this when they were only 4 months old. But to truly be the first word, there has to be a clear intention. The infant must say the word with clear intention. So the child says juice when reaching for the juice. She understands the connection between the word and that glass of juice over there. So it has to be a clear intention. It has to be a recognizable pronunciation that approximates the adult form. So if only you as the parent can understand the child, probably they are still just figuring out the language, but they haven't actually spoken words yet. So if I come in as the aunt that hasn't seen the baby for 2 or 3 weeks and I can figure it out, that's probably their first word. And then consistent use and generalizes beyond the original context. So they now can use it all the time, and they might start to say, okay, juice, I will point to that, but I know that it's orange juice, apple juice, grapefruit juice, but now I can say juice for all of it because I'm starting to realize all of that is juice. Okay, in there. Early syntactic development. Again, this is where they start to arrange words and phrases together. They start to put words and phrases together to create sentences. They start to do this between 12 and 24 months. So think back to that remember the little baby, the little newborn baby that's just lying on the bed, kind of cooing and being cute? 12 to 24 months later, this is what they're doing in language development. It's mind-blowing that these little guys, these little beings can actually do this. So keep that in mind, this sort of miracle of language. Basically, they start in this 12-month range to use of one-word utterances. So they start to be able to say milk, cookie, cat. Most of the words that they use are nouns because they can actually point to them. Milk, cookie. More abstract things like love, you can't really point to that. So those will come later. They will often use these one words to make several statements. So maybe their sister is named Sarah. So they'll go, Sarah? Like, where is Sarah? Or Sarah. They're mad at Sarah. Or Sarah. They're just trying to get Sarah's attention. So they'll use these one-word utterances for different purposes because they only have, at this point, they usually have about 50 words at the beginning of 12 months, and it's up to like 200 or so by the end of the 24 months. Okay, they also will use a system called overextension. And this is when they overuse their small vocabulary, referring to a greater amount of objects. So they call anything with a similar characteristic one word. So they might use ball for anything round. So they might say a coin is a ball, an apple is a ball, a tire is a ball. Okay, because they only have 50 words. So they have to overextend. But they understand the characteristic. There's also overgeneralization. They'll apply a language rule to everything. So this is more where when they learn that they add an S on to make plural, they'll say things like feets, ducks, moose, moose is a little bit tricky, but they'll try to apply that to everything. So that's an overgeneralization. And then underextension is where they only use one word for one thing. So they might call their family dog, but not realize that dog is the general term and Biff is the actual name of their family dog. Okay, so this is it's a transitional stage. So we're going from these one-word utterances in 12 to 24 months. But again, think about 12 to 24 4 months, from the little baby lying on the bed to being able to actually go cookie, milk, dog, Biff, Sarah, is pretty unbelievable. Okay, so again, I want you to watch again what this 1 year or what these 1 year olds can actually do. So this is a 15-month-old child in this video, and just how the child can respond in one-word utterances, but can comprehend all of the questions being asked. Okay, so have a bit of a go so that you have an idea of what this age group can do. Okay, and now I have lots of videos because I think it makes the most sense to actually see kids at this stage rather than just hearing all these terms. So what I want you to do is now compare this video of a 2-year-old, so just just a few months older, like 7 months, 8 months, 9 months older, and look at the language development change between a 2-year-old and a 15-month-old or a 1.5-year-old. Okay, now that you've had a bit of a go with what these kids actually are sounding like between birth and 2, now I want to bring in, there's always a theory. There's always a theory that goes with these things. And this is called, I'm going to just flip onto my pencil here. This is called Dorr's primitive speech acts. Okay, so basically, Dorr proposed that children's utterances, so everything they say, are realizations of one of these 9 primitive acts. So either they're answering a question, they're requesting an action, they're calling, they're protesting. They do a lot of that. They protest a lot. They repeat, they label, so point to a dog and say dog. They greet, daddy. They practice, so they ball, right? Or they're requesting an answer, so doggy, and they're expecting the dog to show up or do something. Okay, so those are, according to Dorr, in this period of time, this is 0 to 2, maybe 2.5, 3, would say that all of the child's utterances are all focused on one of these things, but they can add in a conversation. They can ebb and flow between basically all of them. Okay, so what you are going to do on Collaborate, on our Collaborate session together, is with your buddy, and you'll have time again in Collaborate to do this. You're going to create a dialogue between a 2-year-old child, so knowing what you know about where 2-year-old kids are at now, and a parent or guardian. The scenario is getting ready to go outside in the winter to play at a local park. So that's going to be a scenario. So one of you is going to be the parent, one of you will be the child. And you use all of Dorr's primitive speech acts in this dialogue. And then you're going to share with another group. So again, you'll have time to do this during Collaborate, but I just want you to know that you're going to be using Dorr's primitive speech acts in our time together there. Oh, look, that's fun. Did I just move that? Okay, let's look at now what affects language at this stage. It's kind of, there's several things, but I think these are 4 of the main, and then we're going to get into one that is a really 21st century issue. But basically, parents are caregivers. So we saw that parents who talk a lot to their kids actually benefit from it later in their life. And so parents who read kids books, who talk a lot to them, who bring in really cool vocabulary. I know when my girls were growing up, I had a dear friend who said to me, don't say flower, say chrysanthemum, say rose, say geranium. These kids are sponges right now for vocabulary, so don't just limit them to saying, oh, that's a pretty flower. Say that is a stunning purple chrysanthemum. And the kids will be like, okay, kind of thing. So again, parents are caregivers. Cultural differences, basically how we speak to our children depends on our cultural differences. So for example, it has been found that mothers in the US are information-oriented, chatty, and ask more questions and use grammatically correct utterances with their young children. Japanese mothers are more emotion-oriented, use more nonsense or onomatopoeic and environmental sounds. They use more baby talk, and they use baby's name more often. So again, cultural differences based on the actual different views of society impact how the parents talk to their kids, which again then impact their future language development. All very, all very crazy. Socioeconomic differences, again, just in high socioeconomic households, the child usually will be surrounded with lots of books, and maybe a parent who is at home and can take the time to be reading books and to be talking with the child a lot. In lower socioeconomic situations, maybe the parents are working a couple jobs, maybe the 14-year-old is taking care of the child, those kind of things, and the parents come home and they are legit exhausted. And so, but all of those things, socioeconomic situations, will dictate again the language development of the child. And gender differences. I thought this was super interesting. It has been found that mothers tend to maintain closer proximity to daughters than sons until age 4. Female babies also receive more questions, and boys receive more directives, like take this truck and go outside, or eat your dinner. Whereas girls, they're like, do you want to go outside? Would you like to have corn or peas for dinner? Like, okay, that's what I mean. Mothers are more repetitive, acknowledge more child questions, and take more turns with female babies. Mothers share shorter utterances with male child, even though ability to take in language at this point is the same. So actually how parents and caregivers talk to a male baby versus a female baby is different. So then ultimately their language development will be different. Oh, super cool. Super cool. Oh, now 21st century effect. What? Technology and literacy. We've never had to deal with this before. Oh boy. What are the differing opinions out there on technology and brain and biological and literacy development? It's crazy. It's a crazy thing out there. There's lots of studies, but we won't find out really about technology and literacy development for another like 15, 20 years till we see these children who are digital natives grow up and hit high school and university. Super interesting. You guys are in it. You guys are going to be, you will be the first to have developed research on this. So like any new thing, sometimes we find that it's demonized, that we say, oh, this is bad, there isn't anything good about this. But I think with everything, there are pros and cons, there's negative and positives in here. So if you are really interested in this, there's some optional reading there. And the UFC conference presentation is like 2 hours long, so it might be one of those, put it on the list for the summer. But it's super interesting, brain development and the impact of technology. It's very, very interesting. We're gonna have a bit of a go with this in our collaborate time. So I want you to, what are the differing opinions out there on technology and brain, biological, and language literacy development? What have you heard? Just what have you heard about it? So what I want you to do is I just want you to Google technology and effect on brain development of child, or technology and effect on language development of child. And I want you to just be ready to share a link, any kind of article. It doesn't have to be an academic article, it can be a media article, it can be an opinion piece. What I want to do is I just want to kind of have a little bit of a go with what's out there and what, as academics, as future teachers, what's the truth in this, if we can even start down that path yet. Okay, and then we're gonna just have a brief synopsis, just give a brief synopsis, like 30 seconds, about what the article says, and then we're just gonna have a little debate, like let's have a go with what are the negative and positive things that we are hearing about technology and its impact on literacy. Okay, and finally, to wrap this up, I want you to, this is a little guy, he's I think closer to 3, and I go to 6:45 to 7:18 and just listen to him talk to his mom about when he actually loves his mom. It's very sweet. But think again about this child is only 3 years older than that little newborn baby that you saw on the bed. 3 years. It's a miracle. Language development is a true miracle. Awesome. Hope you enjoyed this. We will see you in Collaborate.